What's going on, y'all? It's your boy Eddie Knight, man. Welcome back to Nerdy Before It Was Cool, where we talk TV and film, especially ones that have to do with comic book characters, man. I just got my tickets the other day for Spider-Man No Way Home, and I'm actually going to see it tonight. I recorded this video and I'm dropping this video in the same day. I've been watching the Spider-Man movies all back from the first series onto the Andrew Garfield series, then on to the Tom Holland series. It's just my personal list, man, so let's go ahead and get right into it. Number 7 for me is going to be Spider-Man 3 from the OG Sam Raimi series. Let me start off by saying that I really do love this movie, and not ironically. I love everything from Bully Macguire on to the goofy campy stuff with Venom. I really do love it all and think it's pretty overly harshly criticized. I think the movie is a lot better than people give it credit for, but just because I love it, just because I think it has a lot of redeemable qualities, doesn't mean I can't be honest about the movie. Look, man, Sam Raimi did his best for what all that was against him, and with all that clear-cut clash between what he wanted to do and what Sony wanted him to do, the film came out very, very messy. So if you don't know the story behind this movie, Sam Raimi was not really interested in working with the character of Venom at all, but Sony really wanted Venom to be in that movie, and clearly they were right for wanting him to be in the movie. I mean, Spider-Man 3 sold more than both the second and the first Spider-Man, but from a creative standpoint, I just don't think you should force that onto a director, because it showed so clearly that he just was not interested in Venom. Eddie Brock and the whole Venom character was easily the weakest villain, easily the villain that was written with the least care, and it just bled through for me. Like, the Sandman character was written with so much love and care, and you can tell there was a lot of nuance, not only in his performance, but just how he was written. And I mean, that freaking scene where he transitioned from human into Sandman and back into Sand again, like, it was seamless, man. Like, to think that was 2008 is insane. So yeah, basically the movie had a lot of really great moments that I remember and honestly even go back to, but it was just a little bit too messy for me to rank it any higher. That's just my personal opinion. You may disagree. But let's go ahead and get into number 6. Man, for number 6, we got Andrew Garfield's The Amazing Spider-Man 2. For me, this one gets the award of the most interesting Spider-Man movie. There's so many aspects that stand out in a good way, and then there's so many that stand out in a bad way also. Honestly, if you take out the obsession with Peter Parker's birth parents, as well as like all the clutter from being too many villains like the last one fell victim to, this is a pretty damn good Spider-Man movie. I mean, really, you got the inherent struggle of being Spider-Man and Peter Parker, your wants versus your needs, just that constant battle of everything you want to do and be as Spider-Man, and feeling everything in your personal life as Peter Parker slip away. I thought that was on perfect full display in this film. That will they won't they relationship was done perfectly between him and Gwen. It wasn't forced, it wasn't overused, and they had insane chemistry. On that same note, I love how Gwen wasn't a passive character. She was very active in this movie. I thought the music was used really well alongside the visuals, and just the musical score in general was really dope. And what a lot of people don't realize is this performance is actually way more true to the OG comic book character of Spider-Man, even down to the playful and almost cocky at times delivery of jokes when he's fighting bad guys. So I thought that was really done well, man. There's really a lot to love about this movie, but it kind of fell victim to the same thing that Spider-Man 3 and the OG franchise did. We didn't really get enough screen time between Harry and Peter. Also, we didn't really get to flesh out Electro's character either. Just throughout the course of the movie, we just kind of see him get angrier and angrier, but we don't really know much about his background or his life other than the small visual things that were shown. Yeah, it was just a little bit too messy, juggled a little bit too much, was trying to set up a larger world, pretty much just got a little bit ahead of itself, and the movie definitely suffered from that in the long run. But still a very enjoyable rewatch for this movie. But let's get into the next one. And now we got to get into number 5, which is Spider-Man Far From Home. And before you start typing, whether you agree or disagree, just know I am not a Tom Holland Spider-Man hater like a lot of people are, especially a lot of millennials and like Gen Z kids really hate Tom Holland's versions of the character for a lot of different reasons. I'm not one of those people. This movie just falls at number 5 for me, for a few different reasons that I'll get into, but I do want to say the things that I like about this movie. The main thing is Tom Holland, man. He's a really dope actor, and as far as the emotional scenes go, he does really good at going from this playful, joyful character to being very, very emotional and emoting that emotion. And I think he does that perfectly. Just my personal opinion though, when Spider-Man starts getting mixed in these overarching big save the world like stories, it just loses a little bit of personal touch for me. I mean, he is the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, and that aspect, that personal touch was just something that was missing from this movie. But my personal opinion, man, this film did have some of the most creative, stylized visual effects and stuff like that than any other MCU movie that I've seen. I haven't seen Shang-Chi yet, and also I'm going to see the new Spider-Man tonight, so that may change. But is before watching those two, they did some really good stylized and dope things with the visuals in this movie that I feel like were lacking from a lot of MCU films. So I do respect it on that front. I just feel like Peter regressed a little bit. You know, in the last movie, we thought he got over all this Iron Boy Jr. stuff, and he just kind of stayed wallowing in that a little bit too long. I felt like this movie was a great chance for them to make it more about Spider-Man. They kept furthering the storyline of him being further tethered to, and his villains being further tethered to Tony Stark. Even though Jake Gyllenhaal acted his ass off, amazing performance, dope idea for a villain, making him act like a hero. I thought that was really cool. But yeah, falls at number 5 for me. And now we got to go ahead and get into number 4, which is Spider-Man Homecoming. A lot of people hate on this movie, man, but in my opinion, Spider-Man Homecoming is a really fun Spider-Man movie. Is it my favorite Spider-Man movie? Obviously not. I don't have as much of an emotional tie and connection to this version of the character or this movie in general as previous iterations. But regardless, I thought this was a great start and a great intro into the universe. If you take your little nerd goggles off and stop trying to dictate what Spider-Man should be, I think you can really come away from this film with a lot of enjoyment. Like me personally, I like that it's a coming of age teen drama and not like this grand scale epic. New York City feels alive. Peter's motivations are clear and apparent. I think people's main gripe is that there's no Uncle Ben and that he looks up to Tony too much. But me personally, the lack of Uncle Ben doesn't really bother me. The only thing that really bothers me about the Tony Stark connection is that they kept it going past this movie. I thought after this movie he was going to get over it. A lot of people also say he doesn't struggle in this movie, and I would have to disagree with that. Is it to the magnitude that Andrew and to the magnitude that Tobey did? No. But he did have a lot of struggles in this movie, to be fair. He sees Tony Stark as perfect. He also sees Tony as his safety net. And by the end of the movie, he not only realizes that Tony is far from perfect, but he realizes that he has to stand on his own 2 feet. And at the end of the day, if the day needs to be saved, it's going to have to be up to him. Like I said, not my favorite Spider-Man movie, but I don't hate it like a lot of people do. I actually really enjoy it a lot. All right, we getting down to the final 3 live-action Spider-Man movies, the big dogs, as I would say. And man, this was the hardest for me to place these 3. With a couple of them, it really could have went either way, but here we are. And number 3, I'm gonna put the OG Spider-Man, the first of the original Spider-Man series with Tobey Maguire from '02. Now, Spider-Man 1 is the OG Spider-Man live action movie. Not only did it influence all of the other Spider-Man that came after, but this movie influenced a lot of superhero movies in general, whether cartoon or live action. I mean, the movie was so good that for the most part, most people don't even know that this is not even really a direct interpretation of Spider-Man from the comics. Like, they don't know that he doesn't shoot webs out of his hand and that he actually builds his own web shooters. They don't know that Peter Parker's personality isn't some happy-go-lucky nerd who's always doing the right thing. And honestly, most people don't really care. This is their definitive Spider-Man. This is where their knowledge of Spider-Man starts. All comic books be damned, this is Spider-Man to them. And what is there to really say about the first OG Spider-Man that hasn't been said by 100,000 different video essayists and YouTubers already? There's nothing too bad you can say about this film. Like I said, it influenced a lot of movies in the genre. The CGI for that time was super duper on point. And going back to look at it from '02, it even looks a lot better than some recent Marvel movies and other movies that I've seen use CGI. The story was simple and easy to follow, but somehow it was still very powerful. In my personal opinion, it was the perfect blend of campy fun and drama, man. Like, there's nothing really bad to say about the first Spider-Man movie, so I'm just gonna wrap it up at that and go ahead and go to number 2. These last 2 is where it got really hard.
Hey, yo!
It got really hard for me to decide on these last 2, but here we go. For number 2, I'm gonna put The Amazing Spider-Man 1 with Andrew Garfield. This gem is a completely underrated treasure. I will die on the hill that Andrew Garfield's first Spider-Man movie was better than Tobey Maguire's first Spider-Man movie. And honestly, if I was younger, I might have put this movie at my number 1. This movie was so overlooked. It's like the middle child of Spider-Man movies. Director Mark Webb and Andrew Garfield were really put in a horrible position. It came out so close to the OG Spider-Man series, and that really rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, especially since there was supposed to be a Spider-Man 4 from the Tobey Macguire franchise that we never got. Me personally, I feel like that even if this movie was the greatest movie ever, still think most people would not view it that way because it came after the OG and so close to its release. For me, Garfield's performance perfectly embodied the character that I used to read on the comic book page, as well as used to see in all the older cartoons that I used to watch growing up. And on top of that, the swinging in these movies was gorgeous, man. They upped the ante on these swinging scenes. They also introduced some of my favorite Spider-Man suits. There's really a lot to love about these movies. If you haven't watched them since their release back in the day, I consider you go back and check it out, man. Revisit the movie. I guarantee you feel differently than you did in 2012, man. It's a pretty solid freaking film. But anyways, let's go ahead and jump to the one. Number 1, the best Spider-Man movie of all time, especially when we're talking live action. For number 1, we gotta go Spider-Man 2, man. I am a millennial in my late 20s, so this probably wasn't a big surprise for you. Maybe it's nostalgia, maybe it's bias, I don't know. This to me is just the definitive best Spider-Man movie out there. Me, I call it Michael Jordan syndrome, man. It's where something was so good and happened in such a vital time in a person's life that nothing that comes out after it will ever match it. Like, who knows, man? That might be it. I don't know, but I do know that I love this movie. It's not just one of my favorite superhero movies, but it's one of my favorite movies of all time. And honestly, any filmmaker could take a lot of notes from this movie. Like the unique way it made you feel for the character by literally having him physically and emotionally get his ass beat the entire film. And I mean, this dude works a job where he gets paid to take pictures of Spider-Man, knowing that his boss is gonna just use those same exact pictures to slander him and make the world think he's a criminal. Like, dude goes through hell in this movie, and they do it in such a dope way that I had never seen done prior to this film. His life is going to complete hell, and it's all because he's choosing to be Spider-Man. He lost his girl, he's losing his job, he's at odds with his aunt, which is the only person he has left at this point. It's like, how much more can he take? Why would he even want to continue to do this? And we don't even have to get into the villain, old Doc Ock. This has been the best use of a Spider-Man villain in any Spider-Man movie so far. This one was a lot different because Doc Ock was very much so like Peter in this movie. Doc Ock in so many ways was a different version of Peter Parker. He's what Peter Parker sees himself as in the future, or what he could be, which makes the ending and the outcome of this movie so freaking powerful, man. You can tell the Amazing Spider-Man 1 took a lot of notes on this movie. Although they took a lot of notes and replicated a lot of that magic and feel from this movie, it didn't quite nail it home as good as this one did. But anyways, that's gonna wrap up my list for ranking the live action Spider-Man films. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Which ones do you disagree with? Let me know down in the comments. I'm about to go chill for a bit. In about an hour and a half, I'm gonna go see Spider-Man No Way Home, man. Like I said, let me know down in the comments what you think. If you like what you saw, make sure you go ahead and click this button right here and stay a while, man. Check out the page. Have a lot of different content over TV and film, especially ones based off comic book characters. But it's your boy Eddie Knight. I'm out.